Everybody ready? In 1 minute, we'll begin. I'm admitting everybody now. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We'll begin in just a moment. Good evening. My name is Colleen Stovall, and I'm the Director of Programs and Events for AIA Miami. And I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Hard Hat Tour. And just a little housekeeping, please keep your video and audio turned off. It'll give us better bandwidth reception. And we're going to try to do some Q&A at the end of this presentation. So please submit any questions you have. You can submit them at any time in the chat feature at the bottom of the Zoom window. And with that said, I'd like to introduce you to an AIA Miami board member, Sarah Malabranch, who's also the chairman of the Hard Hat Committee. Thanks, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Baptist Health Emergency Center Hard Hat Tour. Thank you for being with us. And I want to mention a few of the events Colleen just had up on her screen that we have coming up with AIA Miami. You probably might have already received emails about them, but we have the Urban Redesign Miami coming up, an offers crawl by the Young Architects Forum with Guri Batute. We have the Future of Cultural Centers Dialogue Series coming up, Architecture and Arts and Starbucks in Latin America. The DTE, which is the Design Technology Expo virtual event this year. Power of Light with Lighting Museum. Havana Art Deco. There's been a series of these which have been very interesting with Copper Bridge. There'll be other Copper Bridge events about Art Deco, a trivia night with the YAF golf tournament, and the Urban Warrior going into next year. So I'd like to present who's sponsoring these events. It's the AIA Miami and the Hard Hat Committee, which I am the chair of. We have Baptist Health, Gresham Smith, and NV2 Wave Group. So I'd like to introduce the panelists, and please wave as I say your name. We have Jessica Shutter, sorry about that, owner's representative from Baptist Health. We have Gustavo Alfonso, he's a registered architect with Gresham Smith. Javier Cordova, also an architect with Gresham Smith.
Hi, Sarah.
And unfortunately, we don't have Chris today. He was last minute not able to make it, but we're in good hands, and me and Colleen as the moderators. So Javier, if you'd like to get started, it's all yours.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, Colleen and the AIA for giving us this opportunity to profile this building. Regrettably, we don't have the opportunity of having the typical hard hat tour, so we did the best next thing, which is try to put together some slides that will explain what were some of our concepts and our design intents, and how the building construction process went through, and some anecdotes on the both design and construction. With that, I'm gonna pass along to Gustavo. We call him Gus. We're gonna pass along to Gustavo, who will explain a little some of the design features of the building and the reasons the building is the way it is built.
So welcome everybody. Glad to have you here with this tour. And I'll start by just saying a few words with this slide, which is a representation of the traditional Baptist imagery that you're probably familiar with in the main campus, South Miami campus. They have the Homestead campus as well, um, which has been developing through the years. But most recently, they have departed from that imagery somewhat and looking more into the future and using a more modern vocabulary, which you may have already seen on the main campus where they have the Miami Cancer Institute. And so keeping that in line for this project, which is a freestanding emergency department that is constructed away from the main campus as an independent structure, we were charged by Baptist to move forward with that same way of thinking and move into a more modern vocabulary. So we chose to move into using metal panels, precast concrete panels, as well as curtain wall glazing. And you can see in the next slide, you can move forward. This is the freestanding emergency department, which, if you're not familiar with this, it's essentially it's an emergency department similar to the way urgent cares are, that they're separate in a separate structure within a specific radius of a main campus. And so they can take patients here with with the full service of emergency department, and whatever may not be available here, they can be transported to the corresponding main campus of that this is affiliated with. And what you'll see here, this project initially started out as a prototype, and we were initially going to use the same design or very similar in all the sites. However, the sites having different shapes and then later on different requirements, as you'll see, we really could not keep the exact same building, but we did manage to use the language on the exterior to be similar, and then the portion of the freestanding emergency department maintained itself. And you'll see how I'll describe the flexibility of how it works. And this one, which is the one that you just saw previously, which was the first one out in Country Walk, that was starting out the prototype. This center portion of it, being that we had a one-story structure, we were able to increase the volume on the inside, and we had a clear story window that went around the perimeter at the top, allowing daylight inside to the clinical area. And you can move on to the next one. So then this one is actually the third one in the series, where Coral Way, the one that we're featuring today, was the second one. This one is actually still under construction in the Doral area. And you can see that it's obviously a lot larger. The freestanding AD portion of it is on your right-hand side, where you can kind of see the entrance canopy, and it extends towards the back, towards that golf course in the back. And then in a perpendicular orientation, it has a second story, which initially this was going to be a medical office. Well, medical offices initially, but then it later turned into a neighborhood hospital, which is all being developed right now. So the second story now will actually be a hospital, and this freestanding ED will be obviously no longer freestanding, it's going to be connected to it. It has two separate entrances, the entrance to the hospital being on the left side in those towers, and then on the right side is the entrance to the emergency department. Go on.
So, Gustavo, if I may, what is Gresham Smith design approach when you take on a new project, especially a project of this type?
So these, in this building type, at the very beginning, there is a very large there's a communication with the client where there are user group meetings that we basically involve all of the people that are representing their departments, and we establish a program. Obviously, you know, all of the details of the program, square footage and costs and so forth. But more importantly, we have to establish the way that they work. You know, what their patterns are, how they use the space, and their it will require a very large number. Well, it's several meetings that we have to kind of go back and forth. We come up with our design, and then we have to go back again, engage all the users, and basically get a buy-in from everyone.
Okay, and I understand like a multiple entities then within, you know, that organization, and to make it move forward.
Yes, and I mean, in the hospital scenario, there's obviously many departments. In the freestanding ED, when we did the first one, it wasn't as complicated because it was mostly, you know, emergency features. But there's still always, you know, there's security, there's, you know, all the clinical, the nurses, physicians, infection control. There are many different groups that get involved, and they weigh in on, you know, really what is important to them. And we have to kind of put it all together.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. And Jessica, could you tell us a little bit more about the site selection for this project? Jennifer.
As mentioned, Gustavo said that we have a lot of internal departments. We have two specifically that help with our site selections. We have a planning department and a real estate department, which is under our for-profit side of Baptist. It's our Baptist Health Enterprises. And they basically come up with a demographic that fits our, you know, our needs. And we also look physically on main streets. We prefer things to be on a main street and avenue. And then we also did a couple test fits on some sites that we first selected and realized that we needed a minimum of 2.5 acres for these emergency centers to work on. So we finally selected this one, you know, with the demographics. It wasn't on a main and main, but we took the risk and purchased the land, hoping to obtain an easement behind CVS to assist us in getting to the main road, which was 147th. That never happened, but I think we did great. Even though we only have one entrance on Coral Way, we had 2 on 145th. So it's, you know, the flow's working good so far. We've also wanted to add that we've actually are seeing about 50 patients a day already, which was our year 10 projection. So it was a great site selection in this case.
Wow, so it's proven to be very successful then. Very good. Javier, you want to?
Yeah, some of the improvements they did in the site, after we have selected the site, we added the acceleration lane to get entry from Coral Way, and we converted 145th Avenue from a one-way to a two-way street. The other two things that I'm noting here is the two patient drop-off and the ambulance drop-off. They are on opposite sense, so you don't get the entrance to these two items mixed up, right? So the ambulance has this individual path to it, and the patients do as well. The other item worth mentioning is that we have an emergency generator on site, and this is to make sure that the building is functioning all the time. If there's a power outage, the emergency generator will take over and will be capable to basically make up for all the power that is required for having the freestanding ED functioning.
So here in the floor plan, we could basically go over the simple idea that we had, where we had 2 walls that you can see. Well, you have the exterior wall on the right side where the blue area is, and then there's another one on the left side of the blue area, right in there. So those two walls are are acting as, volumetrically, they're acting as wing walls. And then, as I was saying in the initial one, in the country walk version, where we had those two walls, and then the roof was more of a sweeping element that went from front to back, with a large overhangs on the front and the back area. We tried to translate that into this project, into this Coral Way project. It wasn't as easy, because obviously we had a second story, so we could not express those elements in the same way. So, some of the general things to note here is that in the you have the lobby in the front area there, in that brown color, which our intention was to make this as a like a hospitality type of approach, where it's a lobby. It's not considered, a clinical waiting area, but something that is a little bit more homey to people that would be arriving and spending time there. That area right there that is being shown is an area that we were designating for, families that may have small kids, and obviously you can see the furniture is a little bit playful there, and colors, and then in the next slide. So let me take a moment here just to kind of go over
Yeah.
something. One of the
Sarah,
things that,
Sarah, if you don't mind going back towards this and just showing us, because regrettably, because this is a virtual tour, we won't have much of a chance to show the audience what the building looks like. And these are kind of the images that will show what basically all the details of the location. So if you can go back a couple of slides and then go slowly through those, I'll give you a few seconds to each one. Thank you.
No, of course.
Sorry, Gus.
no, so that's fine. So, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that the reception desk, which was shown, I think, like right there,
Right here.
that reception desk is right across the entrance. So there's clarity immediately when you come in. It's, you don't have to be looking at signs to find where you're going. You're just basically going straight in. There'll be people there waiting to take care of you. And this is typically for either walk-ins or if you're coming to see a patient, and again, you have clear direction where you need to go. And then we have waiting areas, which are going to be to your left and to your right, which are these that are being shown there. Again, with the intention of softer colors and not really being institutional. That's just a night view. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was going to explain a little bit earlier, but this is okay, I can do it right here as well. In the plan, when you see those two walls that I initially mentioned that act as wing walls, the main emergency area is within those walls, and you have the lobby in the front, you have treatment rooms, and the nurse and physician core in the center, and then in the back side, in the light green, is the back of house stuff. What occurs here, we tried to create a flow for the treatment so that the areas that are closer towards the lobby is the lower acuity patients that are just not, they're not as serious. And we have an area there in the center that you can see in blue that is a multi-bed area, we call it. But again, that can act as a lower acuity. As you go towards the back, you have the treatment areas on the sides. And then in that right there where your mouse is, that is the resuscitation rooms, or they're like trauma rooms, which are the highest acuity of all. Also, we have our entrance to the emergency, the ambulance is very close to that area as well on the left side, that you have a direct, no, not there, right from the
Sorry.
back, where the three columns are. You see the three round columns in the back?
Yeah, that's
right there. There's an entrance that goes straight down into the corridor.
And how many patients does how many treatment rooms
This one has
are
12.
in total?
This one has 12, and it has 5 positions in the multi-bed area, and then the 2 resuscitation rooms. And so one of the things also that we wanted to talk about here is so I mentioned the lower acuity in the front, higher acuity in the back, but we also were, since we were initially doing this as a prototype, that central area, which is in the blue and the yellow, can expand in the north-south direction. So if we needed to increase the number of beds in a different site, because it allowed us to, we had more space, we basically can leave the front and the back as is, and the center core is what would expand. And obviously in the other direction as well, if we needed less beds, then we can decrease.
So it allows for some flexibility for
Correct.
more space.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so these next coming slides would just be a visual of, you know, the type of materials used, and in the center here, this is the center core, which is a little different, obviously, than the one-story version that had the clear story. So we don't have that feature of letting natural daylight in, but we you know, tried to maintain the same clean lines with the central nurse station and the med room, and then the patient rooms on the perimeter. And this would be an example of a patient room, which they're all same-handed. In other words, everything is exactly as you see it when the nurse walks in, which helps to reduce clinical errors. We have on the right side, we have the family zone, and on the left side would be where the clinician would be. And that's, you know, pretty much it for this. So this one here is the resuscitation rooms that I mentioned that are in the back for the high acuity patients. They actually, this is also somewhat expandable. If they needed to increase beds in at the head wall, we have 3 positions. So in the case of a resuscitation scenario, they use the center one, but if they needed to increase beds, they can actually have them on the outside. So they can add an extra bed and just slide this one over to the exterior position. There's 2 of these rooms. So this is the normal state in which this room would be.
And does it provide flexibility to enclose the space, maybe have a semi-enclosed space or maybe some sort of curtains, or is it an open format as we see?
It's pretty much open,
Yeah.
and the situation is made as a resuscitation room,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also made with the possibility of an overflow. So if the case was that they will have so many patients that they wouldn't fit in regular treatment rooms and the low acuity area at the front, then they will allow to put 2 stations here. So it's not something that you will commonly do. There's just provisions in case it's needed.
I mean, I don't know if Jessica, if you want to jump in here, but I know that I remember hearing that this particular one, after being open, has been, you know, quite busy.
Like, I think the intent is just overflow for now. There isn't any cubicle curtains that divide the resuscitation rooms, but it is for overgrowth. If needed, then we'll have to maybe retrofit it, but it is intended just for 1 person at a time. You never know if, you know, the pandemic
Emergency.
Right.
Right.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Which is common. It's also common of hospitals to prepare for the unforeseen. In the case that you have here, that's what that we have done. You will prepare for things that we may not have seen coming, because sometimes you have a tremendous need for more patients, but there's a lot of other times where you don't. And you know, if you add more treatment rooms to fit the necessity of what happened, the what if, or what happens we need more, then you end up having a lot of treatment rooms that you're gonna end up not using. So that's
Right, it becomes wasted space.
correct.
And we spoke about using cubicle curtains for this particular area, especially because we share the back a dispensing for medications and supplies. the back area feeds both the resuscitation rooms, and we were going to put cubicle curtains initially, and infection control really didn't like that idea because of you know, just whatever could happen in that treatment room, the maintenance of the cubicle curtains was an issue. So we went away with that and just left it for one bed each room for now.
Fantastic. And for a project of this scale, is it safe to assume that it opens up jobs for the community? And if so, how many jobs did this opportunity present?
I'm not sure on the operational side, unfortunately, just on the construction department. I know that they had about 12 nurses in training when we were turning over this space, but it most definitely opens up, you know, job opportunities for people in the area. I know that we've outsourced several nurses during the pandemic outside of state. I know hospital wise, we hired 200 nurses out of state when we had our spike in the summer. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for the community as well.
Oh, fantastic.
So I think I'm going to move along some of these next slides, considering that we have, you know, I'm looking at the time, and I just wanted to point out in that particular slide, if you can go back one real quick,
Sorry about
that the gray area there is the zone that's outside of that central, those two walls that I initially talked about, and that's where we put in the diagnostic area that's accessible from two sides. It has a CT scan, it has an X-ray. It has a control center that is shared for both the CT and the X-ray in the center there, and then on the bottom left is a lab that's in-house. You can move through these. That would be the X-ray room right there.
And sorry, I was
no, I
going
was
to
just going to
ask.
say. Go ahead.
As I scroll through, if you can talk about the lot size, the AC area, a little more of the technicality.
Let me actually, this is what I wanted to do. I'll
The
discuss
3D.
that. Yeah, if you can go ahead and run it. We wanted to show this 3D model, partially because you won't be able to go into the site and be able to see it in person. So you to have an idea of the volumetric of the building, and you can see there's two large angle windows on the sides. And those are what encompasses the treatment area, right? And you see, for instance, now that box in the back is the emergency generator. And you see that canopy that you're looking at now, this is the ambulance entrance. You can see also above, there is kind of a two screen areas with another bar. This is the mechanical penthouse and the two screen areas, as where we have the building chillers in one side, and in the other side we have some other exhaust fans and other equipment. So it's all a screen from view. And here you're looking towards the entrance. You can see we use some of the features of the buildings, which is we have trellises and ivory, so a lot of covers for the space. Also, some numbers, I guess the air conditioned area of the building is about 36,000 square feet. About half of that is the emergency department. The other half is between circulation and the second floor. The budget of the project is for about approximately $14 million, which ends up to being about approximately about $400 a square foot for construction.
Okay, and then just really quickly, most of this I've already described, but if you want to toggle through, you'll see that's the wall that I initially described that happens on two sides, even though here you see it at double height. But essentially, it's that plane will go through from front to back. Then on the next one, you'll see the other zone, which is the front lobby and the back of house area. That happens just behind that wall, and then also those are the wing wall, the roof, wing extensions that we were describing, that we kind of tied them together with a joint in the metal panel running from front to back. Okay, and then that is the vertical circulation that occurs on two sides and is joined together by a trellis up above, which is part of the iconology that Baptist was looking for. Go ahead. Is it frozen or am I frozen? Sarah?
Sarah.
I think Sarah's frozen.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you too well.
Okay, you can move on to the next one.
Hello?
Okay,
Hello?
I'm here.
Yeah, Sarah.
All right, so I think she got through the next one. So
Can you hear me now?
yes, that area there
Okay,
is
I'm not sure what happened.
it's okay. That area there that's being highlighted right now is the lab, which was on the side of the walls that we described, and the CT zone as well. And then that is the circulation that I mentioned that was on the other side. And the blue zone that you're seeing there is just another entrance that acts as a lobby to the elevators on both levels. Okay.
And the second floor is completely disassociated from the first floor in terms of circulation. It has independent entrance. The reason is because this is intended to be medical office or some other service that is not part of the freestanding ED. So it is a requirement to keep separate entrances, but it's also a desire to allow to have other uses and potentially lease this space to somebody other than, that it doesn't have to be a Baptist, it can be somebody else. So that separate entrance gives that flexibility. What you see in the blue here, we try to make a definition of the area that you've seen the photo from. So in the axonometric, we went ahead and highlighted that area. So we can have an idea of what it is. The previous slide is the main entrance. And this, yeah, thanks. This one is looking towards the ambulance entrance from the side. You can see also the angle fins that kind of tie together the volume of the project, right? And ties all the project together. And next, please. Okay, this is the entrance to the second floor. And you can see how we started. Yes.
Javier, can you speak of the construction method, the mix of methods that were used?
Oh, definitely, definitely. This has several construction methods, and most of them, the construction is actually post and beam, where you have concrete columns with concrete slab and beams, concrete joists for the slab construction. When it comes to the building skin, however, we have a mix of materials, and because of the different conditions that we found and we developed during the design, it made more sense rather than using a single system to use it to cover the building with the skin, to use several. So you see often that it goes from metal panels to precast panel to cuts in place. In particular, most of the building is either the exterior is either precast panel, or the parts that are cast in place that they're covered with either stucco or they're covered with metal panels.
So one little thing I'd like to add on that slide is that we have developed, we started it in the first freestanding ED, and we've actually, we're doing it on all three. And in another project that is an outpatient facility for Baptist as well. And we're trying to create this icon for them that is unique with regards to their pineapple. And one of the things that we did was that, and we've done it differently in 3 different versions. We have it cast in place, and the pineapple is actually debossed. It's set in about 2 to 3 inches, which will be lit from the bottom. We've done it in precast concrete and poured in place concrete. And then the other project that I mentioned, it's actually tilt-up. And that tilt-up project is a 35-foot pineapple that you can see from the highway. This one is about 6 or 7 feet high. And that's just, I guess a point of arrival that people see that pineapple from a distance, even at night, that'll be lit, and it lets you know that that's one of their facilities.
And was wayfinding part of something that you also provided for this project?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is obviously inside
Mhm.
and outside. It is part of the project. But again, this is just, one of those things that I think helps people identify immediately that, that it's up ahead.
Yeah, an emblem. Mhm.
Yep.
All right. And it gives identity to the site as well. They're very well located, so they're visible from outside in the street, and it identifies Baptist. The image that you're looking at here is the back of the back of the building, and this is the entrance for where workers come to work. They come through here, like all the nursing, all the staff. They come through here, right? And are using the main entrance of the building to separate them from the other patients and everybody else that's coming. Also, we created this small cover area, which is also a break area for them when they are taking a break, they have a place to go. And that's another view of the ambulance entrance.
And these are the the columns, the 4 columns you noted
Yeah,
earlier.
that we did before. Actually, it's a very interesting story to this, if I may add. The doors to the ambulance entrance were pretty unique. And when we were developing the country walk, the first project of the three, we run into the problem where we couldn't easily satisfy all the requirements. It's a door that has to open 72 inches width, it's 6 feet. It has to open that as a minimum. And it has to be what they call a level E for hurricane. And leveling is an upgrade for a typical missile impact. So the missile impact for level E, instead of lancing of shooting the wood
2x4.
plank, yeah, the 2x4, instead of shooting at 50 miles an hour, it goes at a speed of 80 miles an hour. So it has to be a lot stronger. We had to look for a product that would satisfy this requirement. And it was what finally we bumped into one that met both these requirements. It was pretty unique. It was one of the first uses in Miami of this product, or ever, because they had just developed and they were just finishing developing when we got a hold of them.
Oh, amazing. So it's definitely a notable project-specific method that was used here.
Yes. Yes.
And how long did the whole construction take?
Jessica,
Especially,
remember, we were talking about, I think it ended up going like 20 months or so.
I think it's a little bit over 20. We started in 2018 on the site, working on the site, clearing and grubbing. It was originally projected to be an 18-month project schedule, and due to COVID, we went a little bit over. So I think we were at 21, 22 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Jessica. I want to ask the guests to please mute your microphone if you're not one of the current panelists. Thank you. Go ahead, Jessica.
Honestly,
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't see anyone. I can see my screen and what I'm presenting to everyone. So I don't see if it's coming from you or someone else. But
That's why I didn't say anything.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Well, those are the beauties of Zoom. We all know that we there's only so much we can do. So Javier, did you want to talk about the building exterior?
Well, apart from that, this is what you're looking at, is the main entrance to the building. As you can see, we have a very large canopy that's projecting from the building, which creates the cover for the cars that drive through. It's a nice feature to have.
And so seeing that this was, the project started, was supposed to start before COVID, and then COVID happened. So how did it evolve during that time and during the construction?
Okay. This is another view, by the way, of the entrance to the second floor. And then part of what you're looking at towards your left is the area in front of the diagnostics area. So you have diagnostics and part of the second floor above it. If you can go ahead and browse a little bit, because right now this is a night shot, and then there's a couple of building features that are the next few slides. But when it relates to COVID, like everybody, we got taken by surprise. It was a decision to Baptist to move along with this project, because there have been a lot of other projects that got paralyzed when COVID hit. Baptist decided that this project was at a level enough of completion that they will move forward with it.
Correct. I think when we analyzed, when the pandemic first hit the United States, we analyzed that we wanted to deem this project as an essential building in efforts to alleviate our 6 emergency rooms or departments in our hospitals. So we decided to move forward with this. And, unfortunately, Chris, who's on the contractor side, was not able to make it today, but I really applaud him and his team. They did not miss one single day throughout the whole project, except for one. They did have a COVID positive case. One of the workers did, and they had to shut the site and sanitize or decontaminate the site. But that was it. They missed one day physically of work throughout the entire pandemic. So that was a great accomplishment. Yeah.
All right. Let's just browse through this in details. Yeah, we kind of got a little ahead of where we thought we were going to be on the conversation. Actually, there's some upcoming slides that talk a little bit about the particular code. I think the previous slide is that one. There's supposed to be a time lapse in here, but apparently there it is. Just
Oh, I might have to
this
go
is
back.
yeah, this is
Here we
something
go.
that it's just skipping through. Just let it roll. Let it run. He'll run automatically.
There we go.
All right. Anyway, yeah,
I had
this
to
is the
click.
one thing that we can show you virtually that we cannot show when we have an actual physical tour, which is the development of the construction. Then you're looking at here, they built out the deck for the second floor. The second floor comes up. It's the deck for the third floor, or the mechanical pen, I should say, and the roof. So what you're looking at here is roughly a 2-month time lapse between a slide and a slide. You can see the building actually went quite fast. All right, thank you. These are some of the challenges we encounter. One of them is because the building is a combination of precast panel and a CBS blocks. It was a complicated item to match them, and I know the construction team went through a lot of effort trying to make sure that they got the right detail. We went back and forward several times to make sure that they had them. Another item is that if you can see, this building has it gives a lot of importance of alignments of elements. So where the joint of the precast panel is, had to be the same joint for the metal panel, and it had to be the same joint for the curtain wall glazing. Why is this difficult? Is because the curtain wall glazing was being fabricated at the same time that they were doing the precast panel, so they couldn't come back and measure and make sure that we're in the right location. And that became, they had to do a lot of coordination to be able to accomplish this. Go ahead to the next slide, please, Sarah. All right, and here is another image of that. If you see the images towards the right, had a lot of plates. So there were a lot of connection plates between the precast panel and between the precast panel and the casting plates to make sure that being with whole. And that also took a lot of coordination and effort to do. These are some things that happened during the construction of the building. The images towards the right are the the chillers for the building. During the construction, Baptist made a decision that they needed to have a redundancy on the freestanding ED. So they asked us to bring the chiller, to put a second chiller, and a chiller takes several months to fabricate. So we had to get creative with it, and we ended up doing was we went to the other project that you saw that we profiled the Doral freestanding, And we took the chiller from that project and brought it in here, which happened to be pretty interesting because what happened is that they increased the size of the chiller in Doral. And so this one wouldn't have worked anymore after they did the design of the hospital. So interesting that they did, like the stands that you see in the bottom right image, we had to provide to put a potential air conditioning systems when they have, when they build out the second floor, to put some condensing units there. The image towards the right top, you're looking at the strategy they use for oxygen. Baptist decided to not depend on the bottles. So you see in the right, there are some bottles of oxygen, and this is air oxygen. In this particular project, they're just being used as backup, but in the previous project, we had used bottle oxygen, and that became a problem because the it requires for them, the provider, to be changing constantly the bottle of oxygens. So what we decided is to put liquid oxygen in the building. It came associated with, having to do new permitting and do some other changes, but eventually we got to put in, and it seems like it's working quite well. Okay, go ahead. Yes, this is some of what we call the lessons learned for we were doing the first freestanding ED. We had to devise some ideas to be able to maintain the consistency on the project, and this is a very important one, which is if you see the bottom left slide, has a template, and this template we carry along from room to room to make sure that we maintain consistency with the devices and that all the head walls in every single treatment room look the same. And these are some other of the, I guess, challenges we encounter. We originally have made the structure that supports the metal panel in this eyebrow. We have made it out of concrete, and in the first freestanding we did, it became a problem because one of these things were put in the wrong place, and when they presented the curtain wall on the structural holes, the curtain wall, it was not aligning, so they had to basically demo that and redo it. And at that point, we decided that it would be a better idea to, instead of using concrete, make this thing out of steel. So it's more flexible in case something needs to be adjusted and changed. It's easier to do. Also, it's a thinner member, so you can adjust the metal panel better through it.
So just to quickly clarify this, that's something that actually happened in the first freestanding ED, the one in Country Walk, and because of that change that we had to clean it up, we used it as a lessons learned for all of the upcoming freestanding EDs to do it in that method.
Okay, we spoke a little bit about
We
COVID,
did.
so just very quickly about this. Some
Did
of
you
the
want
things that
to?
we had to do. Yes, I can talk
Yeah.
about other things. We were the challenges that COVID presented. The image to the bottom left is somebody sanitizing the building where that person got COVID, and they didn't get it in the construction site, they got it somewhere else. But because he had been exposed, and this is back when COVID was starting, people were very scared. Honestly, everybody was really scared. This is kind of a proof to it. They brought people to sanitize the whole building, shut the building for a day, and tested people to make sure that there was not a threat to the site. This, throughout the first few months of COVID, was a real big concern. There were subcontractors that did not want to bring their forces into the site because they had fear of COVID, and it took a lot of coordination. And again, kudos to the MB2A team because they did a lot of. They were very effective into getting the treating the potential COVID issues and making the subcontractor as is that they were not going to be risking because of COVID. The image in the center is, you see it's very blurry. And this is one of the things that happened when you had to deal with COVID, which is that the only way that they were able to show it was for somebody to basically pick up the phone and walk through the site and show it to us, and that worked somewhat well. It didn't work great. Eventually, we decided it was best to go back into the site. And the image to the right is the fire alarm panel. And this was a really, really big concern. Because of COVID, the plant that makes the fire alarm panel slowed down the production significantly. And we had to basically go around struggling looking for a fire alarm panel. If this, and luckily I think Baptist, Jessica, I guess Baptist was who found finally somebody that would be able to come up with with the fire alarm panel. Had they not done so, we would not been able to open the building. Go ahead, Sarah. Lastly, this is an image of the that we took when we did the walkthrough. Um, I guess the comment I wanted to say about this is because this building, partially because of COVID, but partially because of the speed that it needed to be in construction, didn't go through much break grounding events. Like it didn't do many events. When we finished building it, Baptist did a very, very small event, and then the next day they opened. And from the minute the building was ready, it's been operational, and gladly it's been very successful, but not much time for celebrating. It was very quick to get from construction into getting the building operational and working. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. That was really informative. I feel like I've learned a lot about this type of projects. At this moment, we want to open the conversation up for the guests. If you have any particular questions, please write them in the chat. I will be happy to read them to the panelists. I will share my screen once again. I know there are other images.
Yeah, you can put that up on there, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was wondering what happened.
That was my bad.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the questions that are there, or do you?
Are there any? Yes, of course.
Yes. There's a question from Bryce Bounds to everyone. Has Baptist standardized on certain sizes of casework in the rooms? Does that make sense?
Maybe Jessica, if you know the answer to that.
I don't think we did any standardization on cabinet space. I think typically it's really important real estate for storage in any room. So in the treatment rooms, we didn't put any lower cabinetry except for mobile pedestals or mobile carts that housed all the supplies and perhaps any medication that was lockable. So we ordered that separately through medical equipment. I believe there's only one upper cabinet per treatment room. And that was the decision on the end user based on their flow and operations. Everywhere else in the main center of the space, we try to put as much cabinetry in the core for the nurse station. Again, mostly pedestals, I think work best in this scenario so that it's very flexible. Again, with volumes to bring in more nurses or have less nurses. So I think that's why we went with the pedestal option for not anything permanent in the casework. But always the more the merrier, but no standard so far.
Thank you.
Okay, there's another question here from Ivan Contreras to everyone. Can you talk a bit about the prefab elements and how they were done?
Sure, there were most of the precast prefabricated elements are the precast, the curtain wall system, and then the metal panels. These are all prefabricated, and to an extent the metal panels is not, because it comes to a certain extent formed to the site, and then they finalize doing adjustments on the site. Now the precast panel is pretty interesting because they had to make a measurement, and you basically go with that, and it's a very intensive process of coordinating the size of the metal panel and how it meets the adjacent. When the panel comes to the site, it comes from a plant which I think is in Tampa. It's stable concrete. They bring it from Tampa, and then they start hosting it up. They want to make sure it fits, and in most places it fits very nice, even though of the complex angles. But when they don't, they had to adjust the casting plate and may have to sand it or grind it to be able to get it to the size that it needs to accept the precast panel. The other big item here is the curtain glass, and the curtain glass is made by Crawford Trace. It's a very nice system, actually, a very strong system. They generally will measure here. They were not able to measure because to keep the speed of the project going. So it's also about measuring and coordinating the size with the space that they need to do to make sure that it fits. And the metal panels, as I said, it comes preformed to a certain extent, but sometimes they need to make some adjustments in the field to be able to install them. I hope that answers the question.
And one of the biggest challenges I think that occurs, especially since Javier mentioned that they were all kind of being done simultaneously, is the alignment of joints, because since the building is very modular and it has a lot of lines that line up with, with the glazing joints, the metal panel, and the precast concrete joints, that alignment is a big task for them to get it right. And it's not easy. So that was, I think, one of the bigger challenges we had.
And then what has been the most interesting part of working on this project and seeing it being realized?
You want to take that? Should I?
You can take it. If I think of something else, I'll jump in.
There is a lot of the process. It was very nice actually, and the making the team work together, coordinating with the contractor is really been a growth for us. The first project that we did for Country World with MB2A, we had a lot of concerns. Well, not that a lot, but there were quite a few concerns and the things that we needed to coordinate. When we tackled this one, we already came knowing, and we had a team that already knew how to deal with it. So it became much easier to do. And even though there were things that needed to be coordinated throughout the project, a lot of the items we already had an answer for. So we really liked the fact that we were able to learn from our experiences in the past and grow and make it an easier building to construct.
And is this like how many of these buildings have you done?
There's
As
currently
Joshua said?
3.
Three.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The three that we showed here, the Doral, the Country Walk, and this one.
So those three.
And as Javier says, I mean, it really, the first one really had several challenges. And I think, with the first, that's usually the case. But we developed a way of collaborating with each other, and it's a give and take thing between architects, contractors, and owners. There's always a give and take. You're dealing with the budget, you're dealing with aesthetics and what the architect's interests are, and then the contractor trying to get done on time. So all those things I think have been they really came together, I think, in this project, and we're looking forward to the Doral project to continue that relationship.
And Jessica, what has been the most interesting part of this project for you?
I would just agree on their note that the lessons learned carried through have been top priority here, and it was the end user can't be any happier with the result. I think it matches their operations and their flow. So, the Dural's almost, halfway there, I believe. And they're saying, complimenting to the same note that it's much easier the third time around. So, it's have a team that's carrying through from project to project as we learn more, the whole project becomes easier.
No, definitely. And I see here that we're nearing our 1 hour mark. I want to first of all thank you to Jessica, Gustavo, and Javier for taking the time and giving us this tour. I know it wasn't easy, and since it's virtual, but I think it was a fantastic presentation that truly explained the project and all these different methods. I want to ask for any closing statements from you, or any lessons learned you want to share with the guests, and anything you'd like to put out there.
Just thank you to the AIA Miami for giving us the opportunity to showcase the project. It was definitely an interesting process to put together the presentation and the thought of how will we go about showing it without being physically there. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity.
I agree with that. It's interesting how I think as architects, we have to come up with creative ways of, getting our point across. And obviously, within this year, this has become the platform that we all use, and we're all trying to make the best of it. And we continue, we continue to come together and put projects together and collaborate. So it's great.
No, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Jessica, any last closing statements?
Again, just want to thank our team members for working tightly together over the last couple of years. And virtually, it's been an experience to do a whole project. We did ACA virtually, so it was a lot of learning as we were moving forward. So I think our team's prepared for any scenario at this point. So I appreciate everyone's hard work and determination. So thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. And we hope to see you at another AIA event.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.